Marshall, it's great to have you back on the show. It's been a number of years since we talked about your band, Relentless Flood. And, you know, your band has fallen into the same category as a couple of bands I've talked to recently, to where I did not have any clue what was going on with you guys, or if anything was going on with you guys. And I'm glad to see that y'all are active again.
I'm glad to feel like we're active again. Just to be honest, it's been way too long. I mean, you know, just life and circumstances happen. And, you know, I think every artist comes to a point in their career where they've got to really decide, okay, do we really want to try this thing, or do we just want to can it, you know? So yeah. I think we kind of had that moment, and we're really trying to go for it and follow, you know, the call that we feel like the Lord has on us. So.
Nice. Now, briefly before we actually started the interview portion of our talking on the phone, you had mentioned that it had been 4 years since your last release. What has been happening in the ensuing 4 years? I don't know. I mean, just what have you been up to, dude?
Well, you know, it doesn't. I guess if I think about it, it doesn't really feel that long. It has been, obviously, but I guess a lot of stuff has happened in my life. I've gotten married since then, and all kinds of good stuff like that. You know, this record was in the writing process. I think originally we had this record slated just kind of in my head to release sometime late in 2016.
Wow.
And just stuff happened. 2016 was the year I got married too. And it just, I don't know, life happened. I guess, you know, things change, and we've had member shifts, you know, all over the place, and it just seems to be increasingly hard to find people who want to do this seriously. Mm-hmm. You know, especially being that, you know, we've never moved where we started from. We're still in the mountains of North Carolina over here, so it's not like there's a giant pool of musicians to pull from unless you want to play bluegrass. So
right.
That's not a slam, that's just the truth. That's just
You can slam bluegrass if you want to. I'm okay with it. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, you put a banjo in a song and you do it right, I'm cool with it. But, you know,
right.
As a whole, I don't care. Mostly, I just wanted to make you feel awkward and see if I could get you lynched before the end of the interview. We're both in the wrong part of the country to be trashing bluegrass, so maybe we'll just forget that ever happened.
Yeah, we will totally forget that happened. I've got a lot of friends that play bluegrass, so I'll just hush now.
Right. No, I feel you, man. I feel you. Well, I one of my jobs now is I also do a weekend shift at a Southern gospel station that also plays some bluegrass every now and then, so I probably better watch my step too.
Yeah.
Yeah, life is fun. So, okay, so you guys had kind of been, you know, taking a break, more or less. What did taking a break look like for you? I mean, I assume that there has been some writing before you guys jumped into the studio and all that stuff. But aside from that, what does the last 4 years look like for you?
There was writing happening, you know, not long after the last album came out. And actually, we first went into the studio, and I went into the studio and tracked drums for 7 songs of this album in the summer of 2016.
Wow.
If that puts it in perspective.
It does.
So it was never intended to take this long, you know, and it's not like we haven't done anything.
Right.
You know, I mean, we've still played shows mostly locally. We did a short little run supporting Scott Stapp on a few of his shows and did some stuff like that, you know, but
right.
It just, you know, it's one of those things. Sometimes all the cards have to come together the right way for stuff to happen. And, you know, it's also not cheap being an independent band sometimes.
No.
Especially, you know, just depending on different circumstances. So it's just taking this long. I wish it hadn't, but, you know, I'll tell you what, I'm so happy to see that not everybody forgot about us.
Right.
It's been very refreshing, you know, just when we released the new single, and then, you know, I got to post the actual release date for the album the other day, and just seeing the response to it, and all the same people coming back again. It feels like we picked up right where we left off. And I was just like, wow, that's so thank you to all of you fans who are listening, because that's given me a lot of encouragement to just keep going. So,
yeah, for sure. And it's funny because, I mean, I think a lot of it just comes from the fact that a lot of bands, not saying it's good or bad, but have chosen differing routes over the ensuing 4 years, like bands that might have been a mainstay when you guys put out your last record. either have decided to hang it up, or they decided to go a lot heavier, or they decided to go poppier, or whatever. And so there's a lot less people who are at least well known that are still holding the banner for rock music within the Christian community. And I think that being the case, I think there are a lot of people who were ready for your record to be announced and are looking forward to it.
Yeah, I hope so. That sounds like good news for us. So
right. For sure. Well, now you had mentioned that you guys have released a single, so let's go ahead and talk about that one. It's the lead single off the upcoming record, Escape the Fall, which I'm guessing is still dropping on the 27th of April.
It is, and iTunes pre-order will be up on the 13th.
Oh, okay. Nice. Cool. So the lead single is called Away From Me. Let's talk about that one.
Away From Me, it's a declarative type song. It's a declaration. A lot of times I feel like it's more of a song talking about something that we as believers go through. I mean, I feel like we wrote it to where anybody can identify with it. But, as far as in my life, the way I was looking at it when I wrote the lyrics, it's one of those songs, I feel like sometimes we live with stuff that we don't have to.
Right.
And I'll kind of explain that. So there's certain things that bug us and get us down, like shame from our past, whatever it is, guilt from our past, things that have been taken care of, those feelings of anxiety, stuff like that. I mean, it's no secret that the devil likes to bug us. I mean, he throws things our way. He likes to bring our past back up in our face sometimes. And I feel like oftentimes we just live a powerless life. There's a lot of power in knowing that the scripture says we have power and authority over him and the powers of darkness, that we can tell him to get away from us, to get behind us,
right.
In Jesus' name. And that's where that power comes from. That's what the song is about. It really is. It's just kind of like a stick it to the devil song. Get out of my way. I'm through with fooling with you, basically.
Right. And isn't that interesting? I think that that's always kind of a different kind of viewpoint than a lot of people can take when it comes to thinking about Satan or the devil, is the idea that usually the best tool he has against us is just using things that we have done to make us feel bad. And
absolutely,
because we feel bad, then we feel like there's nothing else that we can do, or we don't deserve something that's been freely given to us, which is funny because on one hand, that's true. We don't.
Right.
But that's not the point. It's like the circumvention of the point of, yes, we don't deserve it, but that's the reason why we need it. And that's not a reason to turn it down.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, we don't deserve it, but if we're looking to live an empowered life as a follower of Jesus, we have to view ourselves through the lens of how he sees us. We have to view ourselves as we are now, in Christ. Because if we view ourselves outside of Christ, we are powerless against the things that the devil throws at us. But, in Christ, we are a new creation. We are the righteousness of God through Christ. And through that power, we do have that authority. And it's something that I've had to learn to unlock through my life, because it's just like a song on our last album kind of sums it up, the song Erased. It talks about how, even the stain of what we've done is washed away.
Right.
It's not, it's like when you drop ketchup or something on your shirt, and you go to wipe it off, you can wipe the actual substance off, but it leaves a trace behind.
Yeah.
But what Jesus did for us took the evidence that it was even there away. So it's like when you truly understand the scope of that, it becomes easier, I think, to see like, oh, you know what? The devil's throwing this shame from my past in my face, but God doesn't even remember it.
Yeah.
So that's an empowering thing. And I think that's kind of where this came from. It can just having this newfound, vision and direction about the power that we have, the authority that we have, can really help you to lead a more powerful life, in Christ.
Yeah.
I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, for sure. No. I got you. Now, the other song that we're going to play during the show is one that you had sent me that I'm guessing is going to be on the upcoming record as well. That's called Set Me Free. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so Set Me Free, and actually what's funny is I feel like a lot of artists write songs kind of from this angle, and I don't think we had yet. It's just it's a song that's more of a cry from somebody who's kind of in a pit of despair. We wrote that because I felt like we needed something that there's so many people that are going through different situations, different tragic situations in their life, feeling like they're lost and hopeless. And it's a song coming from that same place, battled and weary, and somebody just finally gets down on their knees and cries out to God to set them free, because that's all that they can do, at that point.
Okay, nice. Now, how much of this record would you say was written recently as compared to kind of a longer span of time in between the last record and this one?
So 7 of the songs were written probably quite a bit longer ago, at least a year or more.
Okay.
And then it had been so long. Our original plan was we were going to throw out like a 7-song EP or something like that.
Okay.
But then after it had been so long, we were like, well, let's just go ahead and put out a full length. So we wrote 3 more songs to go along with that more recently, right before we went into the studio. So we finished up tracking the album about this time last year.
Okay.
And then there was a process. So this time we did some different things, in the whole recording process. We used the same studio and recording engineer Jamie King that we have in the past.
Okay.
But we brought in Jake Jones from As We Ascend.
Right. Yeah.
He kind of helped us co-produce it, and he mixed the record and did the additional programming and stuff on the back end.
Okay.
So all that happened over the course of the summer, and after that, and actually Robert Venable, who drums for As We Ascend, mastered the album. So there were a lot more hands on this record, which I think was a good thing. I liked having, other ears in on it. You know what I'm saying? Because we've always been very fully self-produced. The recording engineer that we've always gone to, he'll make suggestions and stuff, but he's not like a true producer.
Right.
So it was cool to have other angles on the songs and, changes made and stuff. I really enjoyed that process more this time around, I think.
Nice. Very cool. So with this process being pretty much done, I mean, you guys are, at the time that we're recording this, are less than 2 weeks away from the release date. Are you guys, I'm guessing you guys are self-releasing this. How did you guys finance it this time around?
Actually, so this time we did a crowdfund campaign.
Oh, okay. Somehow I missed that.
Yeah, so it started, I think it was last June, sometime around there, and it went for about a month. I think it was a 60-day campaign. So it was last summer is when we were running that campaign. That's how we funded it this time. Because, as you bring more people in and a lot of times you get what you pay for. So there were things that cost more with this record. And I'm just telling you, we didn't get to our goal, but what we got really, really helped us out. We definitely wouldn't have been able to do it without that initial support from our fans. So I'm more grateful than ever for the people who have gotten behind this album.
Yeah, for sure. Now, was there any discussion about whether or not you guys, even though you had done a crowdfunding campaign for it, was there any discussion of trying to put this out through a label, or did you guys really just like being able to handle that part of, or that end of it on your own?
No, we liked being able to handle that end of it on our own. And that the way the industry is right now, it's really more in the artist's wheelhouse. There's so many resources for distribution, everything. And we did actually end up doing a distribution deal on the Time Is Now record, actually about 6 months after it was released. Mm-hmm. And, it put it in some other outlets, but it didn't help us at all, just to be completely honest. All of the major outlets we already had covered.
Yeah.
So that's just how we decided to do it this time.
Sure.
Just releasing it independently. It's, at least initially, it's going to help us out more to kind of recoup some of the funding.
Absolutely.
So, it's all a learning experience. I'm still learning.
Well,
every day.
I mean, dude, I think everybody is. I think everybody's having to try to figure out, with everything changing as quickly as it is, it's a matter of not only how do you survive as a band in general, but it's like, where do you even bother spending your time? I mean,
Exactly.
There's that rumor going around. I don't know how much is true or not, that iTunes may no longer actually sell music anymore. It'll just be Apple Music, and
Right.
it's I don't know. I mean, on one hand, I'm like, oh, that stinks, and on the other hand, I'm like, well, when's the last time I bought a song off of iTunes? It's weird because it feels like everything's changing and nobody really wants it to change, but at the same time, it feels like the majority of people might not even miss it, which is weird.
Yeah, I know, and because I'm the same way. I mean, I love it when people buy our stuff off of iTunes,
Oh
because
yeah.
it's still that instant revenue like that. But I'm in the same boat. I'm like, well, when is the last time I'll buy physical copies?
Yeah.
Quite often, just because I like to have the physical copies. But I don't know when the last time I bought a whole album on iTunes was. Streaming is one of those things. So many people talk about streaming like it's the devil, and there's, it certainly has in some ways affected the industry negatively, and what we as artists get in a negative way. But it's not all bad. It doesn't have to be all bad, because that's recurring revenue.
Right.
It's not much, granted, but it is recurring revenue, versus an album sale being a one-time cost. It's so much harder to make it all back that way than it is, when you're getting a bunch of upfront iTunes sales. It's definitely not better for the artists. I'm not in any way trying to say that, but I also don't think it's just the devil,
Right. Well, I think the big challenge for artists now is I think it requires more consistent, busy work on the back end.
It does.
Because, I mean, it's not like you said, I mean, for the artist, the way it used to be is like you get them the record, it's done. It's like you've got as much as you're going to get, unless you have just the uber fan who buys like 4 copies of it to give to their friends or to have backups. I mean, I had this one friend of mine back when the Dixie Chicks were huge, who had a copy of their album that was in her car. She had a copy of their album, same album, in her bedroom that she kept in her CD player, and then she had a copy she kept in her purse in case she rode with somebody who didn't have it. I'm just like,
wow, that is a super fan,
right? And I'm just
I wish
going,
we had a fan like that.
Exactly. I'm just thinking, man, how much better would the music industry be if like everybody just wanted 3 copies of their favorite band, of all of their records, for that matter. But it's craziness. But without that, but at the same time with the streaming thing, it's like it just feels like you have to have this constant push of, hey, have you guys checked out our album this week? Don't forget to go check it out. And you're just like, well, yeah, and I get it, because on one hand, it's no longer just like you got 20 CDs or however many you might have on your shelf, and you're picking between those. You got like the whole world of music, and unless you actually bookmark it in some sort of meaningful way within the program, you might not ever see it again.
Right. Yeah, and it almost takes away, there's not as much of a push for, I feel like for the true fan there is, but there's not as much of a push for whole records.
Oh, most definitely not.
With streaming and stuff, everybody cherry picks what they listen to anyway.
Yeah.
So it's almost it's more important. And this isn't just coming from me. I've had this conversation with several people, but it's more important to just put out new stuff consistently.
Yes.
Yes. So that's something we're looking at going forward too. Is like, how do we want to go about strategizing when we release new music and how much new music we release, kind of thing. So
yeah, for sure. Well, now, slightly changing the subject, since the last time we talked, you have stepped out from behind the drum set.
Yes.
And obviously, we were just talking that you tracked a bunch of the drums for this record. But beyond that, I would assume at least that the proposition of not having to sing and play drums live is a rather freeing thing for you.
Oh, it is. It is so much. I think I was just stubborn about it for a long time. And it was definitely, it was definitely a unique thing, I think,
Right.
I kind of had some pride in that. I was like, oh yeah, I do this, it's fun and people enjoyed it. But, at the end of the day, doing this style of music, you can't get around the fact that it's better when I don't have to drum.
Yeah.
As far as breath control and everything, and And honestly, it freed me up to just, I feel like, throughout the time since I stepped off from behind the kit, to just focus on my vocal more, and continue improving. I feel like it is in a lot of regard, especially like in the vocal area. I feel like it's just a whole nother level. And I'm not saying that like to sound conceited or anything. I'm just saying I just really feel like stepping off from behind the kit allowed me to grow in that way, and just us all to focus on our own parts. And yeah, I said I did track, because when we first started tracking that record, I was still on the drums at the time. But those last few songs we wrote, my current drummer played the drums on them. And we're kind of like drumming twins.
Oh, nice.
You can't really tell the difference when we play, so it's nice. It's not like one of those frustrating things where I was standing up front being like, oh, he played that fill wrong. Oh, he should have played this that way. No, I don't have to do that, because I totally trust him. He's an amazing musician. He's an amazing drummer. Actually, when he first came into the band, he was playing guitar.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he is an incredible guitarist as well. So we're kind of a band of multi-instrumentalists. So kind of have fun that way.
Right. Well, now not to give away any part of your live show, but with that being the case, do you guys ever swap in the set?
We haven't. It's something we've talked about.
Yeah.
Maybe sometime when we have a longer set, just kind of switch it up a little bit. We used to do that some, if we were playing at some kind of a youth event and they wanted us to do some like praise and worship stuff in the middle of the set or something. I would come off the drums and come out front.
Right.
But that was when we had somebody else in the band who could play drums. But no, we haven't thought about that yet. But it's logistically it's kind of hard, because you get so much cymbal bleed on the mic and everything, and it's just a bunch of extra to set up and sound check for. But I would love to do that eventually. Just kind of swap around and jam and have fun with it.
Yeah, for sure, man, for sure. Now, how picky were you when it came to him stepping onto the drum set? I mean, was that a difficult thing?
No.
Okay, good.
It wasn't because he's that good.
Yeah.
Honestly. I hope he hears this and hears how much I'm praising him. But
I hope so too.
But man, he's just a natural at it. There's certain things that you look for in a drummer, and I think, like, especially for me, there's so much, like, somebody can play the parts the exact same way, but the feel is not there. Or the way they hit, the tone that they get out of each drum can be totally different. But he wasn't like that. He gets good solid hits out of him. He's incredible. He can, on a lot of things, he can play circles around me. So I was like, I totally trust you on this. Just go for it.
That's cool.
And he's solid,
Yeah. And I'm sure it helps that he was also in the band already. I mean, it seems like it might have been a little bit more of a stressor, or more of a situation where it would have been easy to be picky if you guys were having to like have an open audition for a drummer to replace you.
Exactly. And it also helped, it's one of those things, after you have, in this kind of stuff that you're doing, after you have the music recorded and people hear it a certain way, you play it that way every time, unless you add some kind of other element to it in the show. But in our kind of, like more rhythmical hard rock music, a lot of the guitar riffs and the kick and everything, it all goes together.
Yeah.
And if any of that stuff's off, it just doesn't have the same impact. But he was a stickler when he learned the songs about playing them just as they were recorded.
Yeah.
So that helps.
No kidding.
That helps a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Well, dude, is there anything that you are most excited about for people to hear on this record that you're just like, it's like it hasn't come out yet, but when it does, I can't wait for people to bring this up?
Yeah. There's a couple of songs. There's a couple of songs in particular on the record, and I feel like overall, lyrically, this record is kind of a more honest record. Not to say that anything that I've written before wasn't.
Right. Yeah.
It's just like as I get older, if I have a lot more experiences to pull from when I write music now, much less of. So there were some songs that I wrote this time kind of out of my own experience, and one of them's even just kind of like me venting in a way. But there's a couple songs. And there's one it's in the same vein of what we do, but it's definitely probably heavier, and I can't wait to see what people think about it.
Okay.
And the lyrical content is pretty heavy too, and I'm just anxious to see the reaction. I think it'll be good, but it's always an anxious thing to see, So
yeah, for sure. Cool deal. Well, dude, I know that I've probably chewed up a decent amount of your time already, but is there anything else that you want people to either know about the record or future things that are coming up that you want to clue people in on?
Well, just I'll just drop a reminder. It comes out on the 27th, Friday the 27th. You can pre-order it on iTunes on Friday the 13th. So, and I'll just put this out there too. If you or your church youth group or a venue or anything who wants to bring us in, we are wide open for booking. You can contact us at booking@relentlessflood.com, and we will get back to you very shortly.
Okay. Sounds good. Cool deal. I will ask you this because I like to ask everybody this, and I don't remember if I was asking this before when we talked. So this may be brand new, or it may just have changed on the answer to this question, but
yeah,
you are the lead singer of a band. You used to do drums and sing at the same time, which is pretty epic. And you're back in the saddle. You're putting out a new record. It's heavy, but even so, Marshal Huffman, what is the most un-rock and roll thing about you?
The most un-rock and roll thing about me?
Yes, sir.
Oh, there's a lot of things. Let me think about that for a second.
Okay, let me rephrase. What would your wife say is the most un-rock and roll thing about you?
That's a really tough question. Maybe it's just how dorky I am. Honestly, I'm just a goofball. I'm not, if you see our band pictures and I look, kind of serious or doing the mean mug thing, that's just not me at all. I'm like one of these people. I'll just walk around the house making random noises to entertain myself, kind of thing, like.
Well, that's good, because for half a second there, I thought you said I'm one of those guys who'll just walk around the house naked, and I was like, what? No. Much better answer. Making random noises. I am that guy too. So I feel you.
Yeah. I don't know if that's like rock and roll or un-rock and roll, but that's all I can think of right now. So.
Well, that's all right. It's not as if I gave you any warning that question was coming.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So now I've got to follow up that question a little bit. What is like the most reoccurring noise that you will make at random while walking around the house?
I got to think about that one too, because it's literally one of those things that's so random. I don't even know if I remember what I usually do.
Well, here I will admit one to you while you think about it.
Okay. Yeah.
Whenever I bump into something or make just a casual mistake that could end in pain, but it doesn't really, for some reason, my automatic reaction is to make the sound that Yoshi makes when you get bumped in Mario Kart. So I go, ow!
Oh, I do that a lot. Or like if I drop something on the floor, I'll just make a high pitched kind of scream, kind of like kind of like that kind of deal. Just I tried to pull the phone away from my face, so I wouldn't bust any ears. So I do stuff like that all the time, and probably the one thing that my wife would say I do a lot, because it's I'm so glad she puts up with me, but I'll take phrases all the time, just like two words, and I'll flip the first letters of the words around.
Okay.
Like everything. I'm trying to think of an example that doesn't turn bad, but yeah, I do that a lot, and I do it all the time when she's talking. Like, she'll say something and then I'll reply with that. And she's like, "Oh, stop." I'm sorry. No, but we have a good relationship. Very good relationship.
I like how you qualify that. We have a good relationship. A pretty good relationship.
Yeah. I think she might tell you different, but I think that's the only thing that I do that really annoys her. So
okay, well, that's good. That's good. I wish I could say the same. Oh man. Well, dude, that's awesome. That's awesome. And I love asking that question because it always feels like there's some level of, I think at least that's perceived by people as, you know, like you're asking questions about songs and about the record and about music videos or tours or whatever. And everyone kind of always assumes like, well, they've answered this question 5 times in the last 10 hours. You know, this is something that everybody kind of knows. And it's like, it's all about the band. But you throw that question out and you get this weird different side of people that most don't see, which I think is really cool and kind of humanizing. And to me, I find it more interesting. I mean, I highly approve of people like going completely off script, and I love to be able to throw people into a different zone. So thank you for going with me on that. I appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. I enjoy that too. I like being random. So
cool deal, dude. Well, man, thank you so much for spending time with us. Of course, the new record, Escape the Fall, dropping on the 27th of April. You know, if nothing else, stream it, check it out. And I can't wait to hear it myself, man. Thank you so much for your time.
Hey, no problem. Thank you so much for having me on.